Hubot. You know that Hubot is not only a co-working space. We are famous for our talks. We have more talks than days in the year. And today I'm happy to present Corey. She's going to have a workshop, not only Skillshare, but even a workshop on communication and different communication strategies. And now a couple of words about other events this week. Today later, we're going to have Aaron, who's going to give a talk on goals and how to set real goals. Tomorrow we are having Bali Bunkers. Get noticed and funnel your way to the finish line. And we have social hour on Friday. It is going to be in the house of Schnitzel. The restaurant is really not far away. And you are all members, you should have H-Pass. This H-Pass gives you 15% discount in this house of Schnitzel. So we're really happy if you come and join us and socialize, after working hour. So yeah, once again, welcome Corey, and I'm really excited for your talk.
Thank you. So to start, I'm going to be really annoying and make you all shut your laptops. And phones, please keep them on the table. I have paper if you want to take notes, if you didn't bring any paper, and if you need pens, I have a lot of them. Though they're colored and erasable, so please return them. They're amazing. But, I don't know if anyone needs any, but please take them in and pass them around. All right, ants. Cool. So,
people are getting notes on this laptop because it's
I guess. Yeah, that's totally fine. 100%. So the reason I want you guys all to take your laptops down is because I want this to be a bit more interactive and to build the culture within the room. And I know that you're probably just honestly taking notes on your laptop, but also eye contact and communication, really nonverbal communication is really important. So thank you for that. So a little bit about myself is I've been, the last 15 years or so, I have been an employee, a teacher, a manager, and now I'm kind of the COO of a company. So it's kind of been a whirlwind. And a huge part of all of it has been the communication and company culture that I've learned through all of those different fields. Coffee shops, clothing and house goods, and then teaching 2-year-olds. So I have a lot of different experiences there. So to start, I wanted to show you why I have a whiteboard as well. This is the parking lot. Beep beep. Preschool teacher. This is used for when either I am circling around something and I can't get past the idea, or I keep repeating myself. Please let me know and we'll table it and I can come back to it. And if you guys have something to share, please interact and raise your hands and everything. And if we can't fit it into what I'm talking about in the moment, we'll put it here and table it and come back to it as we go. This chart, which I can show up here too, I don't know which one is going to be more clear, but this will be up the whole time. This is something that my husband back there worked together with me. Husband Jake, but I'll probably just call him husband. Him and I worked really hard on conflict resolution with a distributor that we worked with. And from all these Skillshares that we went to, we built this kind of chart that's really started to help us get through communication hiccups and issues and help us build our own culture. What the two sides are what I've been stuck in for 15 years and what I think a lot of people get stuck in, and what I'm hoping to grow into, and what I hope you guys can start thinking about and moving towards as well. And instead of being reactive, working really hard at being proactive and taking that time to not give that immediate reaction response. And instead of having problem-based communication, having solution-based communication. You can be pissed off. You can be angry, you can be frustrated, and you can communicate that to me or to each other. But at the end of that, come with a solution. Otherwise, there's no next step that we can take through that dialogue. Instead of using blame, work towards empathy and try to see that other side. Instead of creating a lot of demands, figure out how you can work in collaboration with each other. And instead of having individual focus, me, it's the whole system, because no team is built of just one person. So I'm going to keep bouncing back at this throughout the entire time. That's why I'm going to leave this up on the side here. So to dive right in, what I want to cover is, in communication, talk about the written versus spoken communication. FaceTime, not FaceTime on your phone, FaceTime in person, looking at a human, and pulse checks. Perceptions and expectations you have, transparency and honesty, and then discussions, how to hold them. And then a second one that's really important is company culture. And we'll go over what it is, why it's important, values, how to involve it in your hiring process, and nurturing it. And then we're going to have some tools to put it all into action at the end. So, George Bernard Shaw says, the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. And I know you've all been there before, that you thought you've talked about something and it's completely misunderstood or not happened at all. Which is one of the biggest downfalls of communication and one of the hardest things for us, which most of you, I'm sure, are remote workers and have a remote team. In written communication, is the truth ever really conveyed? And how are your words actually taken? Because if you work with someone that's on an opposite time zone and they read that email the next day, they're not going to get that feeling behind that email, that joke, that emotion, that feeling, that passion. They're going to read how they want to read it. If they slept bad, if they're whatever, they're going to take that in. So that truth often gets missed and lost, and is awful because it's way harder to get back than when you can bring it out in the beginning. So what I've come to agree upon, especially with my husband, with everyone in the team, and with even family members and friends, if you're writing more than 2 paragraphs in an email, or you're writing a text that has taken the screen of your phone, stop. Pick up the phone. Have it out. Have that chat. And I understand that a lot of us are on different time zones, and it makes it difficult to just grab that phone call and talk to America. But in those cases, there's the power of voice memos. Remember those voicemails back in the day? That voice memo can capture your passion, your voice, your personality, and you can get that thought out clear. But you can also write that novel of an email and not send it. And the next day, when you are on the same time, call them up, and you'll have all of that information to share with them. And you will be proactive, not reactive, because you sat on it before you sent it. If you've got that heated novel going, and you take that time to think about it, you might not be as hot and heavy about it, and you might not be as lost in your own mind about it. Plus, the phone call will last 10 minutes. Writing that paragraph will take all day. I feel that written communication should be used as a follow-up for spoken communication. And I don't mean that prior to meeting with someone you shouldn't have an agenda or maybe have had a text or an email back and forth. I mean that you should be able to speak to someone before providing them with a demand or a request, or it's the whole left side of the mindset chart, is that written communication provides no space for collaboration. When you're able to speak first and then send back the facts after, you'll be able to be providing shared information, something that you've both agreed upon. And it's much more clear, rather than having to call someone after receiving said long email and you're already stuck in the assumption and you're already stuck in the blame of what you've gotten out of that writing. Maybe not what they've done. FaceTime! That's Jake. That's Jake. That's young Jake. FaceTime is just a gold mine. It is one of the most powerful things you can ever do in a company, even when you're remote. It reminds you that people are behind the role, the discussion, and the arguments you're having. It's not the social media marketing person. It's not the graphic designer. It's Stephanie. It's Tiffany. It's a human. It's Jake. It's not just husband, which I'm doing right now. There's a person behind every single thing. Every single thing, there's a human behind it. And when you just see it on the screen, just see it in the dialogue, in the text, whatever, you lose it. And you're stuck in that individual phase, and you're not seeing that collaborative opportunity. Which making the time and going the extra distance changes everything leaps and bounds. We've fixed our whole entire relationship with the distributor by sharing this chart with him, opening the floor, and him making the time and going the distance to come here for a day-long workshop, which changed how we perceived him, instead of just how he was perceiving us and how we had assumed and put him into a whole fixed persona. So, pulse checks. You know, all that small talk when you're like, hey, how are you? And someone's like, great. What they really might be saying is, freaked out, I'm losing my mind, I am literally stuck in my brain. But we don't hear it because we have small talk. We don't care what that answer is. Even if you're the nicest person on earth, a lot of the times when you say, hey, how are you doing? You're not ready for the actual dialogue. So we've been using a lot of pulse checks in our company. And they can happen, we use Slack, or I'll use it through text. And I can just send out a pulse check, and that person knows that it's the safe space for them to actually tell how they're feeling. I actually come from a lot of social anxiety, and I love when someone is like, hey, but are you cool? Did you want to come out, or do you want to stay in, or do you want, like, someone can actually connect with me and know that I might not be doing all right. And this is important to use when it's needed, but when it's not needed. Calling out when they're doing amazing stuff where you can tell they're riding really high. Ask them how they're doing. How do they achieve that great vibe? Share it with me. Get that pulse check. And be ready for the response. Small talk is not being ready for that response. Being ready is, give them that 10 minutes to an hour to talk about it. Whatever they need to talk about. And it's a great sneaky way to pull accountability into the mix. You can just lightly check in and say, how's it coming with that one article you were writing? I just saw some pictures that we might be able to use in it, and throw in that check-in, but gently and calmly. So this is a quote I really like. It says, listening itself is an art. When we listen with a still and concentrated mind, it's possible to actually be responsive to what the words are saying. Sometimes deep insights come in a flash unexpectedly. When we're not listening is when the best things are being said. All the time. And that is unfair for the person communicating with you. Which leads to perceptions. No matter how selfless someone may be, their wants are more important than yours, always, in all of life. put yourself first. Yes, take care of yourself, think of yourself, be responsible, but know when you're communicating with someone else, if you aren't aware of their wants, they won't be receptive to yours. There's no ability to connect. There's no feeling of validation or worth within that dialogue, no matter what that dialogue entails. And I really like to think about working on how to be the best conversationalist I can be. I often get flustered and I can't convey my points. And so when I'm trying to be a good conversationalist, I try to be an attentive listener and to be interested and ask questions that encourage the other person to speak about themselves, about things they enjoy and that they're passionate about. Before I grab out my wants and my needs and my demands, I'd like to lift them up and hear from them, which I hope is helping me become a better conversationalist. Expectations should be there on both ends of every communication and every company and every dialogue and everything. But they should be there lightly and they should be very clear. At the start of every project and every business relationship and even friendships and even romantic relationships, you should be able to begin with those expectations, with that openness and honesty and clarity of what that other person also expects, what you expect of them and what they can expect of you. Then it's very important to note them, revisit them frequently, acknowledge them, admit when you're not meeting those expectations, and be ready to talk about it if someone else is not meeting the expectations they told you and committed to you that they could provide. When you have an expectation and you don't share it with someone, how are they ever going to share that with you? Because it's a hidden demand that's secretive. With those connections and openness of expectations, cooperation comes. And that's when you consider someone else's feelings as important as your own. Their expectations are just as important as your expectations. So one of the biggest parts in my mind is transparency. And transparency has changed the way our company has worked 100%. Instead of having a bit of island-based communication, being transparent brings us all on the same piece of land to actually be able to work together. And humility, use it. I'm horrified to be talking to you guys right now. It's a huge, huge insecurity for me. But I think that these things are so important, I want to share it with you. But you knowing that it makes me feel uncomfortable to be up here lets you understand where I'm coming from and can change how you perceive and take in these things I want to share with you. I'm going past that to share with you guys. Daily check-ins are great for transparency. We do ones at the start and the end of the day, which helps each other see what we're working on, see what we hope to achieve, and then at the end we get to celebrate what we did achieve and what we plan on working on the next day. And that transparency helps people like me who works in the project management of our company to see what people are working on and help guide them if I can see that they're putting their time somewhere that isn't necessary for that day. Early and often before the biter conversation. This is from preschool. I learned so much teaching 2-year-olds and talking to parents that I have been able to bring into this company. It's shocking. One example is that with parents, you build that transparency and conversation and communication early and often before you have to say, hey, Johnny's a biter. Got to work on this. Rather than you pop out that biter as your first part of communication. You haven't built any of that dialogue. You haven't had any of that transparency beforehand. Moving forward, the only connection you're going to have with those people is negative, unfortunately. If it goes with your company, if there's anything financial happening, keeping everyone up to date throughout the entire thing before you have to give any notices of what's going to happen makes it a less of a blow, and also makes them take part of that dialogue and know everything that's going on. I know that it's not personal and they're not caught off guard. And in transparency, you should remember that we're all human. Every single one of us. All of us. Honesty. Honesty is a great way of checking yourself. A couple of ways that I do this is I'm working on trying to change "I'm sorry" to "thank you." Because in all honesty, the amount of times that I say I'm sorry is false. I'm not sorry that traffic made me late. I'm sorry that you had to wait for me. So changing that dialogue of saying thank you for waiting for me helps build a nicer plane of communication rather than completely being apologetic all the time. And it goes the same as inverting your words and direction. Instead of pumping out your side of things, you can bring that honesty of being able to see that someone else is going through something else. I know this must be hard for you. I know you've been dealing with a lot with moving house and settling in a new place. Is there anything I can do to help you? Pulling your honesty and helps pull their honesty out. A big one is falling on your sword. And if you don't know that phrase, it is completely admitting fault. And I've been doing a lot of customer service the past few days, and I've had to do a lot of falling on my sword. But when I do it with all this honesty and changing it around instead of "I'm sorry" and saying "thank you," I've gotten a world of difference in response because I've been honest with them. And sincere. And again, we're humans. And the last bit is that honesty without empathy is cruelty. I've always learned that honesty is the best policy and you should always be honest. But you have to have tact and responsibility behind that honesty. And you have to read the room and read the person before you drop that honesty on them. And check yourself if it actually does need to be shared or not. Because some of it does just come off hurtful and harmful. This is when I love this quote. Feelings like disappointment, embarrassment, irritation, resentment, anger, jealousy, and fear, instead of being bad news and bad things, are those clear moments that teach us and let us know where we're holding back. And having that empathy, knowing that everyone is having these feelings, isn't bad news and there's no need to blame. You can just see it and learn from it and pull it in to how you communicate with those feelings of your own or how you receive them from someone else. So with discussions and conversations, begin with a safe space. And some people don't realize that it is a safe space to talk unless you share with them that it is. And if someone doesn't feel comfortable to tell their honesty and their truth, then you're never going to know that they're stuck on something. And they're going to be own faults that might have played into that argument. Also, taking time and listening helps you work on that defense instead of being reactive and blame and having demands. And another element that ties to preschool and adults alike is that you should use a lot of praise rather than criticism. When you praise positive performances, positive actions, positive accomplishments, you're going to see more of it. If you just are bringing attention to things people are doing wrong or things they are late on, then they're going to keep doing those things wrong and being late on it because they're getting more attention for it. So if a child gets all the attention out of the group because he's the one that keeps knocking things down and gets the attention of the teacher to say stop, he's going to keep doing it because you stop and give them that energy. But if you praise the ones that are doing it nice, like thank you all for sitting so nicely in your seats and not throwing your paper on the ground, the one person that's throwing their paper on the ground is going to be like, got it, keep the paper here, then I'll get the good reactions. Yeah.
I just want to ask you that the previous point you had, I had this epiphany that I wanted to write down. In the moment that I brought this thing out to write it down, I forgot what it was. So if you could just kind of go back.
This one?
Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you. Okay.
And you should share it with us.
As soon as I remember.
And we have all day.
I'll find you.
Okay, and now, sorry. What was the main point you made here on this?
To listen and be patient when you're in an argument and to avoid being defensive. Starting backwards, my brain kind of doesn't work either.
I got that.
Sorry.
No problem. Thank you so much.
No worries. And anyone else, please stop me if you need anything. Holding. So company culture and what it is and why it's important. What it is that vibe and that feeling that you get when you enter a room, when you enter a workplace. That energy that's already there is the culture that has been formed. There's had to have been a job that you've worked at that you walk in and you don't know the person sitting next to you. Or you clock in, you do your job, you clock out, you don't talk or communicate with anyone in other fields. That's a vibe with a really spread apart company culture. And it's important to pull that back together. And ways to pull that together and build that company culture is to have a mission that you can share. To have values that you share, ethics, expectations, goals that everyone shares. Right now, this room has good company culture because we all share the value of wanting to learn a little bit more about communication and culture. We're all here for the same reasons. We share that same value of joining in and learning from each other, which is why co-working spaces work, because it is an element of unifying people that work remotely. None of us do the same thing, opposed for me and Jake and Adam. None of us do the same thing. We're not working in the same company, but we have a culture here that makes us more productive because we have a safe space, Hubud. We have a Skillshare where we get to learn. We get to come in every day and talk to people that are outside of what we do and learn from them. Which leads to what your role is in the company culture. The way you hold your space, the way you behave, the energy you bring, it has the power to permeate the surrounding environment. When you sit in that traffic in the rain like it's been doing for the last few weeks, and you come in with the heavy feelings, it can permeate everyone around you. But if you come in all pumped up and amped up and you're like, what's up? What are you guys working on? What are you doing? And you share that positive energy and you invoke that power and empowerment in other people, you get to share that vibe and create that culture. Why it's so important is that where you go to work should not create stress. It should be the place that helps alleviate it. Yeah, jobs are stressful, tasks are stressful, but the company you work within, the people you work with, should not be the cause of that stress. They should not be the reason you don't want to go to work that day. And building an exceptional culture is the difference between high performance and low performance. When people feel validated, valued, equal, they're just going to perform through the roof. When they have that heavy feeling, that negative feeling, that isolation, that fixed mindset, they're not going to feel that connection, and they're not going to give you a good performance on anything because they're stuck on their island in their individual zone. And if you make that whole system and bring that whole team in, people want to do the best they can do for themselves and for each other when they're uplifted. Values are important in work, just as important as they are in life. You need to believe in what you're doing, and you need to make sure that your values are shared with those you work with, and if they're acknowledged. If you have a discussion with someone you work with and say, why do you want to work here? Why did you pick us to partner with? Why are we sitting here in this room? And you have two separate, different fields, two clear parallels of values, you learn that that's not the culture you need to build, and that's not a fit. It doesn't matter if there's a huge dollar sign attached to it. It's not worth it. Good old Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg says, the reason why we built this company is by far the best way to get the best people together and align their incentives around doing something great. Which is, if you're building your own company, all you should do is surround yourself with the best people you can find. And the best people are best in their own way and in their own different things that they can bring. Hiring. Have you heard the term hire slow, fire fast? Instead of hiring fast and firing slow. Hiring should take time and care and dedication. It's the same process you should put through when you choose a roommate. You don't just fill that void. I mean, sometimes we do fill that void out of convenience, and you're stuck with that really weird roommate that doesn't pay their bills and is gross. Same thing happens with your company. If you just use that convenience and fill that void and hire up quick, you're stuck with them. And
Probably worse with husbands too.
Yeah, took a long time with this one. Just kidding. Sorry, babe. Actually, you proved my second point exactly. Never assume you can change or mold someone. Excuse me. I can mold things all I want. Anyways, never assume you can change or mold someone. It's the age-old woman comment, oh, I'll just fix him up. I'll just make him the perfect man. I can make him dress nice and clean and all those things. When, isn't that the worst thing on earth? That person is nothing that you want or nothing that you're connected to. And there's nothing at all except for what you envision you can make them into. So you can't assume that someone who has a great CV and great experience and all of this talk, but maybe the personality doesn't match, you can't assume that you can mold or change that person's personality or visions or goals. You have to be open and let them in and test them out. A good way to do that is not to have an hour or an half hour interview, is to get creative and do shadowing and do trial runs and do a week probation where you actually get to see someone in the process. That 30 minutes or an hour in an interview, I could be whoever you want me to be. Well, I'm not that good of an actor, but anyone can be anyone for 60 minutes. You can put on that, it's that fine line between that pitch and the honesty behind it, because you can sell yourself, but you can also sell someone else. You can sell who that person's looking for, and that does go with dating. Find out the hard way with that one. Obviously, as I mentioned, don't hire based on convenience. Take that time. It is worth it. It's frustrating, but it's worth the extra work you might have to take on while you're waiting to fill that void to actually have the right person working with you. And go with your gut. Red flags are there for a reason. Those feelings are there for a reason. It's because you're not connecting. You have that lack of alignment with that value and ethic and everything that pairs you with each other. That doesn't mean the other person isn't a great person. It just means it's not the right entity of your culture that you should be bringing in. I don't know how to say his name and I feel very rude. So Tony Such of Zappos. Zappos was the easy part. He said something that stuck with me so strongly. He said, people you hire represent your company outside of work. For example, if you meet someone and they say, I work for Hubud, and you don't like that person, you're going to have a bad taste in your mouth for Hubud. Because that person represents your company outside of the workforce. That person is connected with you. So it's important to make sure that those people are the right values and can put off the right perception of your shared goal and your shared mission. And they're not just a role and a quick hire, convenient hire. Nurturing. Cultures are like little babies. They should be in a constant state of evolution. It should be pliable, adaptable, be able to change. And with that, if you're the owner of a company, you should be able to let every single person in your company be a part of building that culture and have their own say in the culture and the way things are done. And that's how you grow and how it's adaptable and how it's able to continue to be what it can ultimately be, rather than staying stuck in that fixed zone of your idea. A way of helping doing that is boosting energy levels and supporting personal development. For example, our social marketing manager, she is in America. She plays in a band. And on our company calendar, we have the nights that she's practicing and has shows. Because we're not going to schedule our meetings for those times, because we believe in her and we believe in what she does on her own time, because that's what makes Tiffany Tiffany. And if we don't honor those things outside of the workplace, you can't nurture what happens inside the workplace as well. Aha! What's this? Thank you. Got really nervous that nobody's going to say anything, and I have some right here. Oh, it's tart. So, there's this guy called Kerwin Rae. Does anyone know that name? No. I don't know how this man is in my Facebook feed. Just appeared in my Facebook feed, and I think I got turned on to it from a Skillshare, to be perfectly honest. Suddenly, this guy's videos kept popping up in my feed, and it was awesome. He's this revved up Australian guy that just lays it out there, tells it like it is. And one of the best things he ever did was compare company culture to brewing kombucha. Because if anyone's ever brewed kombucha or learned about the process, it's delicate. If one teeny tiny fruit fly gets in there, it can ruin a whole 10-liter batch. And if you're not checking it regularly, you don't realize until it's too late. So you have to nurture it and grow and test things out. Like, how did they get ginger and peppermint flavored to be nice and rosella to be nice? They did it through nurturing it and testing levels and changing things and adding things and taking things away. And just love it. You should look this guy up. He's nuts. I love it. I really like it. It's really revved up. And so some of the last elements of nurturing are remembering some of these aspects. Nurturing is providing that trust and safe space. Sharing those interests inside and outside of the workplace. Making sure everyone has their equal say and providing value. Equality is big. No one wants to just be told what to do without having understanding of why. Building that culture and communication helps develop and erase that element of why, because you get to involve them in every step of the way. For example, if Tiffany in America is a day behind us and Jake and I work really hard on something and we switch something we've already agreed on, and she wakes up to us just telling her what's happening now, she's going to feel isolated. She's going to feel on her own and not have that connection. But if we keep her in the loop and engage her and keep her values and what she thinks out of it, she's going to take that empowerment behind it and also have those awesome ideas that we didn't think about because it's just the two of us. With the more people, the more power, the more clear your culture can be. Yes.
I have a question. How do you engage your staff?
How do I engage them? We have a tiny team, so it's a little easier to manage, but a lot of times we use the tools like Slack and iMessage, things that we can connect on an immediate basis, but throwing in Giphy, that changes everything. You can say, hey, I actually need this by the end of the day today, and then throw in a little cat that's like working really hard, and everyone's gonna be like, okay, I'll work on that. If he's doing it, I'll do it. I try to engage with everyone that works with Adventech by talking to them as a friend and as an equal. And I try to check in and do those pulse checks frequently because I get lost in my own hole of tasks, and if I don't try to push myself to reach out and connect and engage with everyone else, I also get lost in it and I'm not getting engaged, which permeates the team, and then I just share all that yuck with everyone else. Does that help? A little bit. So this is the last bit that I have to share. I don't have no idea what time it is. Oh yes, there's like 17, 18 minutes left. So I'm just gonna kind of whip through my takeaways that I hope you guys have gotten a little bit of. And then I really, really would love to chat and have any kind of feedback and any kind of questions and any kind of examples that you might have that maybe you're working on getting out of that fixed mindset. So some of those tools are acknowledgement, and that's how I engage my team, is to acknowledge their hard work, especially if something's late. Acknowledging that I can see they're working hard on it goes leaps and bounds over saying, where's that thing that you said you were going to do? Changing we, replacing the me, the I need, and including everybody. Town hall meetings. I love this concept. It's making sure that every single person that's present has the space to stand up and speak what they need to speak about, even if it's nuts. We had a sales representative, got it? We had a sales representative in the US that was super excited about Walmart being interested in us. And Jake let him have the floor to talk about Walmart and say, it's all this money, all the, it's Walmart, it'd be everywhere. And then at the end, it was that time for Jake to be like, let's go back to those values of what our company is and see how those things don't actually connect. But that guy still had every right to be proud and excited to share his idea. Maybe that's that's one of the ways we realized that we didn't share a culture with this sales manager, because we weren't on the same page. Those shared values weren't the same. We wouldn't want to be in Walmart, but at the same time, we wouldn't be able to, because what we provide is unique and slow and takes time and wouldn't be a fit at all. So it showed us that culture. But that town hall meeting makes every single person's voice heard. It might take a long time, but that time is worth it. You learn so much when you give people the floor. Keeping those doors open eliminates that gossip. If it's always open, if you always have that space at the meetings, if you always have that pulse check, if you have these tools like Slack for us is a game changer. Everyone sees everything that everyone's talking about. We barely keep anything private. The only thing that's private is maybe a financial discussion. Otherwise, everything's up there. Even if it's not your field, you can see what's going on. You're in it. those doors are open. You don't have to feel like you're being eliminated and left out. And again, hire slow. But when you see that that person's the fly in your kombucha, flick them out.
Did you flick that sales rep?
Did do that indeed. Flicked it right out of that kombucha. And now it's nice and tart. Just kidding. Yeah, I mean, that's something that's actually a really hard thing to learn. Jake has had this company for the last 5 years by himself. And a lot of his hiring has had to be out of convenience because he's been on his own. And that firing fast hasn't worked because when you have to get rid of someone, you lose that skill. You lose that someone can do something so well for your company. But it might be the best person at that job, the best accountant, the best statistics dude ever. But if he doesn't fit, if he's that fly, if he's that person bringing in the yuck, he has to go. And you have to take that risk because the culture is the only thing you have at the core and the foundation of a company or one that's worth going to. So some of the tools that I've implemented in the last year are Slack, utilizing Skype and FaceTime more frequently, picking up the phone instead of those long emails, and Google Docs. Google Docs is perfect for transparency and collaboration. If there's a final document, great, seal it up, throw it into Dropbox, throw it into the archives. But if it's in progress, it should be pliable and movable and changeable and adaptable, and everyone should be able to click and look at it and see where it's going and put their 2 cents in and give that feedback. And that is all. Yeah. Thank you. So I can put my email up later too, but it's just my name. But I wanted to just leave this up here too, just so you guys could see it, because this has been the backbone of our problem solving, our communication. It works in relationships. Remembering these elements when talking to your husband is incredibly helpful. To not blame and not have problem-based communication, which is easy and in that fixed mindset. So it's really helped. Yeah.
So how do you create a safe space for a team that consists of people from different background and culture? Because they might have different mindsets and like their own definition of like safe zone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you have like any advice on how to do that?
It depends because, I mean, a good way to do it is to have something like that Slack, but when you have it, to have that set of like rules and guidelines of the space and have everyone work together to build that rule and guideline. So maybe have a meeting and ask what things are important to everyone, and then gather those things that can be that outline for that safe channel. And if you know and you can sense that someone won't feel safe speaking in front of other people, create a channel for just them. I have a pulse check channel with just a few people because it's their private safe space. Sometimes the safe space shouldn't be in front of everyone, especially if it involves someone else. But
I just have a comment to this question. Maybe it's also a question of hiring. So you are hiring the right person to know that this person will be comfortable in the environment of the company. And that's where it creates kind of the safe space.
yeah, definitely. Having those elements out there at the beginning avoids the element of trying to build a safe space. But at the same time, that might be difficult. Maybe it would be difficult if you're not the one that does the hiring. So that is kind of hard. Yeah, please.
Elaborate, okay? So, for example, she's got the idea of no blame, okay? So, oftentimes people don't know that. So, by elaborating and actually creating, say, for example, a no blame zone, you know, this company has a no blame zone, etc., and therefore you were able to show people that even if they do make a mistake, we're not going to blame them. We're going to help them to essentially fail intelligently and move forward. So that creates just giving them that reassurance that they're not going to be blamed, because the default, in most people are, oh, every time I do something wrong, I've been blamed. And whether it was my parents, whether it was my boss, whether it was whatever, husband. So by creating that upfront knowledge, oh, well, this company is a no blame zone. We don't blame each other. We help each other to fail intelligently.
I think you can do that too by leading by example and admitting your own vulnerable moments. Like saying, man, I really messed up on this one, but I'm really looking forward to trying differently next time. What do you guys think that I could do next time? Instead of, that shows that it's okay to communicate it. You're already saying it yourself. Hey, I'm crazy anxious. I'm super nervous to have all of you guys looking at me right now. But you all know that, and none of you are being cruel about it because I told you. And I was upfront about it. So, I mean, it is difficult though, because cross-cultural, everything is hard. And yeah.
So to like build on that, and like what led to us building this graph is to address that exact thing. So we had the distributor that you mentioned that was in just 2 years time became our best customer. They're dropping fat purchase orders on us. It was great. But the communication and culture was so toxic that our investors were like, just ignore it, Jake. Like, take the money. It's fine. But we were at a point where we're like, I don't think that we want to do business with this person because it's just stressful and dysfunctional, and there's a lot of paragraph emails. And so we said, okay, come to Bali. Let's meet face to face. Let's talk it out. And we still, and he accepted the invitation. We still didn't know what to do, but we were ready to basically just blame him for all of the bad things that
those problems.
he was doing to us. But then we realized that that's completely unfair because we don't even know where he's coming from. We don't know what his challenges in life are, because clearly he's got other stuff going on, not just this sales relationship. And so we just kind of we went to a few good skill shares. One was a really good leadership one over at Outpost, and it kind of helped bring us back to the Covey's concept of the 7 habits of highly effective people and the fixed mindset, growth mindset. We built some of the ones underneath it, but basically the example we gave before starting anything was to kind of coax the things out of him naturally by giving examples of things that we've done wrong on the fixed mindset side to basically move our company and our communications backwards, and how we're changing the dynamic of the business to be in a growth mindset to move things forward. And by having these things on the board the whole time and just giving examples to each one, he came to his own conclusion. He just came out, he's like, oh wow, I can see that, I've been in a fixed mindset. I was in consulting, I worked for big corporations. You're a startup, you don't have resources. When I ask for something, I was just expecting it to get done, but I don't realize that you have a million other things on your plate. Without me telling him that, he just came to his own conclusion because we created a space for him to see that there's a clear division of negative and positive, which side do you want to be on. And so by creating kind of those very clear outlines and kind of falling on our sword and saying, we've done this wrong and we're now doing this right, and by building the culture, profit just automatically follows. He's like, okay, cool. And so then we just naturally talked about everything, and we gave one example of something he did with the individual thinking versus the whole systems thinking, but that was the only example we gave, just to make it more clear. So for example, I just asked him a question this. So there was an issue where we had sent the new spring summer 18 bag collection to him first to get feedback, and then we needed him to send it to our distributor in Japan to get their feedback. It was very time sensitive time that we needed everything to be delivered so we get the feedback, apply it to the samples, get it to the show. But in his process of sending it to Japan, he didn't like take the extra 5 minutes to create his own commercial invoice to send it to the distributor. He used the one from Vietnam, and just because he wanted to save himself 5 minutes time making the paperwork, our distributor in Japan had to take 3 hours out of his day to go to clear the samples out of customs, and they arrived late, so we had to cancel our meeting about those samples, which put the whole thing, like the whole development process, like 2 weeks behind schedule. He didn't know that, but I said, okay, how long would it have taken you to create your own invoice for the SS18 samples to go to Japan? He's like, I don't know, 10 minutes. I was like, okay, so what would it take you 10 minutes? Here's what actually happened. Because I didn't say it until he was in person. I just told him what I told you guys. And he's like, oh, okay, get it. I was like, that's what we mean. Whole systems thinking. Because your decision affects the whole system, just like ours affects your whole system. So we need to be empathetic of each other's situation before we make a quick judgment or decision. Or if we're ever unclear about something, just ask a question, because we have this no blame environment. And so it's like, okay, sweet. So now we just share everything. It's from a positive space, and don't send 11 paragraph emails. Like, if you have that much to say, write it, table it, or schedule a call. And it's changed everything.
With that same example, we learned a lot about him because he wasn't empowered in that process of the sample delivery, because we kind of built it up with the other distributors and just sent him things that were already in progress, come on, Corey, things that were already going on. He just would receive them, and maybe it has nothing to do with his customer base, and that doesn't feel like he's a part of the system at all. So he felt excluded and frustrated, and we didn't even think of that. We were worried about making sure that we made this one distributor happy. We built this collection with them rather than building it with all of our distributors to make it one company, not the Asian company and the European company and the American company. And we learned through this process that we need that whole system.
That was the biggest takeaway.
That was a huge takeaway. We didn't.
His fault. It was us realizing just how many mistakes we were making, and we were just in a fixed mindset, blaming him for making us feel this way. But he has all these other things, all these other responsibilities, and we weren't bridging the gap in our minds. And once we did, and once we opened the floor for positive, open communication, you change it.
Yeah.
I have to say you're an amazing communicator. Oh, thank you. So it's good that you're giving this talk. Aside from funny, you're an amazing communicator. You haven't said I once in your talk, and that's very, very impressive.
Wow.
Because usually many communicators are about themselves at some point in the talk, so that's, I have to say, that's very good.
Well, thank you.
Now I have been on the left column most of my life. I was the reactive one, problem-based communication. I would blame everybody. I would be demanding and very individual. And I tried to evolve towards the right column. I think I've done a pretty good job there. But whenever I run into someone that's in the left column, it's almost impossible for me to stay in the right column. So my philosophy now, and I know it's not the right one, because you might have an employee or somebody working with you that's absolutely amazing, and you need that person. But my philosophy right now is to walk away, so that I don't find myself, because my buttons are being pushed, in the left column again. I hate being in the left column, so I just walk away, and that's not the right solution.
But it's not wrong, because as long as you can try to bring them to your side.
I'm not even sure.
Because if you can try.
I'm not even sure.
Yeah, because if you can try, it's fine to flick it out, because it is going to pull you back into the same. It's the same negative habits that you get that you can fix it and get healthy and be awesome, and like you don't drink for a long time, and then you've got that one friend that's like, oh, let's go, and you're like, all right, I'm doing it, and you get sucked right back into whatever it is. But it's that constant work within yourself, and then that facing it out onto the other person with your own examples. But I mean, I know that's really hard because it's hard and uncomfortable and
And you're
heavy.
bound to run into people in the left column.
Of course.
It's a matter of just psychological balance.
Also, everyone bounces back and forth. I started some of this talk thinking about problems and about just talking about all the problems that happen in communication, and it's completely hypocritical and doesn't help at all. Instead, I thought, oh no, how do we actually fix those things and build those things?
But anyways, well, before you find a solution, you have to know the problem. So
Right.
it doesn't mean that it's a fixed mindset. If you find the problem, and then you find a solution for this problem.
Yep. Being in a growth mindset is being open to trying to find the problems at least. Yeah, there's 2, 3, 2. Yeah.
So I want to elaborate on that because I find it really difficult as well to communicate with someone who, for example, I've got a friend and she has a tendency to always talk about herself, and if I say something, she shifts it to her own perspective as well, always, and I always try to like make it the other way around, like make it an open conversation, but it always gets back, and I'm really struggling with how to communicate with someone like that because it is a habit and a pattern, and she obviously doesn't know that she's doing that, but you want this person to have no, it's
Okay,
I knew it!
2 interns having an hour. This makes for a good video. The failure of the talk.
No, maybe you just want to communicate with here.
In the safe space!
Yeah, safe space.
no, it's definitely easy, but how I think the only possible solution here is to say it, but saying such a thing to a friend, that is what I find really difficult. What can you say about that?
I've been in 100% the same place with my mother, and that's really hard because how do you parent a mother? And I worked for years to share that fact with her and be open with her and share things by giving examples of what I've done that are similar and say how I get out of it. But I had to come to a point where I realized that I can't help someone that doesn't want to help themselves, and I actually can't mold her into the mom I want. I can't mold her into the relationship I want. So I had to come to this level of acceptance that my mom is fixed. She's in there. She's just in that zone. And doesn't mean I love her any less. Doesn't mean I don't want to see her. But it does limit the amount of energy I put in because they're called vampires. I didn't use it in here, but those flies, they're vampires. They suck out all that energy.
But
And
I
it's
also think it comes back to your point about honesty, and it's unfair to that person if you don't tell her how it makes you feel.
Of course.
Because if you say, when we have communication like this, it makes me feel this way.
Yeah.
Just share that feeling.
It's to people first.
Yeah, and then if there's a negative reaction, then sometimes it is, I think, in life okay to walk away from people. I've had to walk away from a business partner because I tried everything to get us to sync up, and it just didn't work out.
Don't you feel guilty in a way? Don't you think it might be me?
Yes, yeah. And then I've had a lot of coaching and a lot of mentors, and I've talked to a lot of people about the situation, and those people have also talked to him about the situation to confirm that I'm not completely crazy, but I still think about it all the time. It's just a groove that's in there that I'm working on eventually leaving, but I think the best thing to do was to just say, okay, this is a very special circumstance where it's okay for me to.
and that's putting
Distance
value and
myself.
respect within yourself.
Yeah, because it's not healthy.
Yeah, right, sorry.
I had the same experience as you, and I know how to fix it. I can tell you. So basically, if you have this issue, what you need to do, you have to give her as much as she wants, because the reason she wants to talk about herself, because there's lack. If you are her best friend or some friend who can make it full, like she'll be amazing. Like if you can allow her to talk about herself up to a certain point where like she feels fulfilled, she feels happy, and then when you put her to that state, Vera, Jenny, or whoever it is, can we have a chat? And then say, when you do this, this is how I feel. Don't say like, don't do this. Like, and when you act like this is how I feel. And then just shut the fuck up and allow her just to react. If at that point, maybe do 2 times, if throughout 2-3 weeks, if he still doesn't want to give you, cut the relationship, delete her from Facebook or whatever. Just like, I feel that we're not on the same page. I tried my best, give her 2 chances, and the third one just cut the relationship.
Yeah, so basically, same as well, right?
Yeah. But also like, don't say I have a problem when you act like this. When she's full, like when she's fulfilled, because that's where she like, that girl makes me happy. I will do everything for her because she's in a given. She's not able to understand you if she's in a lack mode.
Yeah.
If she's in a lack mentality, she just can't give you that.
If it's a friend, you will never. I mean, you will always say this with empathy, right?
Right, but
Not necessarily.
Yeah,
she
not
may not
always.
have that awareness.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't make them bad. It's just
Right.
they don't have that awareness.
But as the person who is irritated, you will always say this with empathy.
Well, I think the
Anything
circumstance
to-
of this, and you can probably, I think this is a different response in the workplace versus in personal relationships. There's a in the workplace you can say, well, we need to do this, and you look at the value structure. In your personal workspace, you're a little bit more flexible with your time. You can make personal decisions as to whether you want to be engaged in that person. I think establishing some boundaries, and the thing is, we've all done it. I mean, I've done it before. I've made it about me. But we've all kind of done it. So I think establishing some boundaries, like maybe at the beginning, if you know she's going to do it, you can say to her, I'd really love, just to talk about this for a little bit and then get your input on my situation. Maybe that's a way of establishing some boundaries.
Also, you're trying to change a person. You're trying to change a habit she has. And you're not going to change a person that doesn't want to change. So your role as a friend is to make her aware that there is a problem as far as you're concerned. And maybe tomorrow she will let her know. And in 1 year she will let her know. And she will put 2 and 2 together and you contributed to her change.
Agree completely, and it's
But
without
she
saying.
has to be willing to change.
And it's without saying you do this. It's saying when you do this, it makes me feel. Like we keep coming back to that. I think that's a really delicate way to do it.
Maybe it's not about
it's not
you, maybe
pointing
it's me.
fingers. Yeah.
Maybe it's
I would
me.
just write her a really long 10-paragraph. That is always the solution.
I was gonna say that. Print it out, bind it.
Anyways,
But
I think
yeah,
that's great. So I mean, if there's maybe one more quick question, then we can do it.
I could just make a small remark. So guys, I've read an amazing book. It's called Mindset by Carol Dweck. Maybe you've heard about that. So they show what's the fixed mindset, what is the growth mindset, and how to use it in like parenting, relationship. So basically, yeah, really cool things you told about that.
Say it again.
Just mindset.
Bye.
Carol Dweck. I think it's a psychologist from
Carol
Cambridge.
something.
Carol Dweck. I will write it down.
Thank you.
Yeah, really cool thing.
One of the biggest things to just end on is when you're working really hard on this communication and when you're working really hard on this culture, be kind to yourself. And like with the analogy with the filling up someone else's cup, only do it if you have that to give. Because if you just work that hard on filling someone else's cup, it's gonna crumble and fall because there's nothing behind it, and you're not. It's that my favorite thing ever is that picture on the airplane about like put your thing on before the babies, because if you pass out, you can't help the baby. If you don't have that kindness and that dedication to yourself before building communication, before building culture, before doing anything, then you're gonna fill everybody else's cup, and in the end, you're gonna have nothing behind it. And so, if you've got a friend that's just took all of your everything, then even just taking a break, a holiday of communication to refill your own cup before coming back at it. It's hard to do, especially with friends and family and stuff like that. But it's really important.
There's just a comment on that. There's a model called emotional drive that basically gives you a little bit more awareness of why people are doing these things. And when you understand why they're doing it, your cup is drained a lot less, and it also allows you to communicate easier.
Yeah, cool. That's good.
I also want to say just one remark. I really like what you said about instead of saying sorry, say thank you. I use a similar word. So every single time I need to give feedback to someone, like you're doing this, but so I change but with at the same time. It really works out because like when you say the but thing, you kind of like everyone's like expecting something bad, but you say like you were actually doing this very well. At the same time, if you look at this in this way, and then I like they feel more in a way like to
Gives
receive
them,
information.
gives them an expectation to live up to as well, right? Because if you know that this person is really impatient because you're not delivering on that deadline, but if you say, instead of saying, I'm so sorry, I'm late on this, to say, thank you for being so patient on this deliverable, I'm glad we finally got it to you, hope it's helpful.
And using the compliment sandwich.
Yeah, because then you can't be a dick after that. You can't be like, yeah, I guess.
But if you use the compliment sandwich, I don't know if you can tell what I'm showing you with my 3 fingers, but I learned it with communicating with parents and communicating with, again, with that biter. I can use a great example. Instead of saying, hey there, Johnny's a biter. What are we going to do about that? You say, Johnny has finally learned how to write all of these letters, and it's been amazing. And sometimes when he's showing it to his friends, he gets really excited, and he shows his emotions by living on them a little too hard with his teeth. And he also has been able to sing the whole Twinkle Twinkle song. Like there's this whole circle of conversation that's been held that addresses the negative, but surrounds it with, don't forget, I still care about you. Like, don't forget, I still believe in you, I respect you. Like, hey, this is good that you're doing, we gotta work on this together. The bottom one is that, like, you're taking it to the next level. You're really, like, pulling through and doing a great job and showing that, like, sandwich. 3 fingers is the mean one in the middle. You get it?
That's great. Well, thank you so much. That was awesome.
Thank you.
I'm happy to chat anytime too. I love nothing more than hashing out like problems with people. But also, if you had any idea, like wanted to have a chat about how to implement some of the aspects in any way too, buy me a kombucha. Nurture my culture. But seriously, thank you for joining me. And all of those pens better be returned. They came from America, from my mom. The one good part of that relationship with my mom, the erasable pens. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, but really, the pens. But thank you guys very, very much. Yeah, I really appreciate it.